move on to our feature entertainment here. We have a conceptual discussion workshop, Woodmont Commons, PUD master plan discussion.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask you a question before you start real quickly?
Yes, sir.
It seems that your first meeting in the month for the last several months has been pretty light, and it seems that you're getting pretty good attendance for these Woodmont conceptual discussions. Would the board consider moving these discussions to the first meeting of the month, where you seem to be having a lighter agenda, so that folks can probably, maybe more folks will attend, and maybe they can go home a little earlier, too?
Well, there's going to be a lot of, there's going to be more of these anyway. I tend to, well, we have done and always do unless, someone requests like you have, is first comes, first served. That's how we operate. And usually, like public hearings, you want to get done at the beginning because people are there specific for those public hearings and everything.
I'm asking if you would move it to your first meeting of the month.
Not for the first agenda item.
I know Lynn had that question, and we presented to Tim, and,
It's not so much, it's really a question of scheduling. The issue runs into if we were to move Woodmont to the first meeting of the month and move everything else to the second meeting. That's not what I heard Mr. Farrell ask for.
no, but if we don't have anything, if we don't have anything on the first meeting of the month, to me, it's perfectly good, just what John said, is, we can have this conceptual discussion on the first meeting.
It's certainly something that the board can entertain. My concern is that we don't start shifting around schedules for the actual new plans and continued plans because we have deadlines and timeframes that would run into some very complicated
Yeah, or even like
crunch timeframes that would
like
not.
one new plan or something, we could do that and then have the Woodmont, or vice versa.
Problem is, I don't know what my agenda looks like for the first meeting of the month until 2 weeks before the meeting, because that's the
I mean, it would
deadline.
be on short notice that we'd do that because of the nature of,
Another thought, and probably nobody's gonna like this, but this is generating a lot of interest. Would it be prudent to consider having an extra meeting
I like it.
just for this?
That's what I've been thinking about, and haven't
I'm
really
not
approached
opposed to
with
it.
the board
but-
yet, but maybe this is the time to approach it with the board. Would you consider, well, I know the third Wednesday ZBA meets here, so we could do it the fourth Wednesday. Would that be something workable for the board? Because I would feel more comfortable dealing with Woodmont separately, This is a kind of a bear to manage tonight, and really, I think the heart of most of what we have, we want to talk about Woodmont. So, I would ask the board if you'd consider.
My preference is to have 2 meetings a month. It's a challenge, just carving out the time. And I understand the thought for 3 and to give it the time. But if we have the time over the 2 meetings a month, I think that would be the way to go.
Well, we used to meet every Wednesday in my time.
I remember
so this is
Maybe we could just try it on the first meeting of the month for a while and see how it works out. And if it turns out to be more 10 o'clock getting to Woodmont, we can discuss a third meeting. But it seems to me that our first meetings have been very light, and we ought to try that before we schedule in another night. I know it would be hard for me to make a third night.
Okay, maybe that's what we should do. Would the board like to entertain that we try what we can to do on the first meeting of the month, if there's not much there? It would probably be within a 2-week time period. 2 weeks before that, we'd probably actually know. So,
I can tell you that right now for the month of May, right now, the only 2 items I would have for May 11th would be Woodmont and the continued Chinburg subdivision application. The other continued applications have now been dealt with. The only other, there may be a small conceptual discussion may be added to that, but outside of that, I don't anticipate anything else being added to May 11th at this point. Whatever the first meeting of May is, I can't recall. off the
yeah,
top of my
because
head.
as they come in
May
order-
4th, I have 4 potentials. Two are definites. RHP is a definite. Freezer Warehouse is definitely going to be in from all indications. That may change tomorrow, but I am 99% certain that Freezer Warehouse will be submitted. And the other 2 have been in design review for a while and are very close to being submitted. So we're looking at potential, at least 2, if not 4, public hearings for the first meeting in May.
Okay, so, Andre,
Maybe for May, we just, how about if we just stick with the May 11th date and just make Woodmont first?
We could do that, and then Chinburg comes second.
And then if.
If you direct me to do that, I can do that.
Oh, okay. The board want to do that?
Yes.
I just, I agree with, I understand Lynn's and the concerns. It's just, my concern is if we start swapping it between the first and the second meeting, it's just gonna confuse the public, and I think this is an important enough project that it really deserves its own night.
And then maybe after the May 11th meeting, we find out what the June agenda looks like, and if we need that extra
Yeah.
meeting, maybe we take that opportunity to do so.
Short term,
But if
we-
it's,
We'll do it on a monthly basis. And but I think as we start to develop, as a plan starts there, I'm looking for more of a roundtable environment, maybe on a separate date, so that we have some real meat to discuss, because now we're still conceptual, everything's all over the place. But I think as we start to harden things up a little bit, then maybe look at, more of an informal type of discussion.
While we're on this topic, another issue that related to this project moving forward, and it's something that's extremely frustrating from staff's perspective. We received the information submitted for tonight's meeting, and the final stuff approximately 3 o'clock this afternoon. As staff, we can't get enough time to review the information that's being presented to us the day of a meeting when we're preparing agendas, preparing recommendations.
Yeah, I don't think that's acceptable.
We need to be able to get this information in advance so that we can have some reasonable recommendations and feedback from staff, because it's nearly impossible to do that based on the time that we've been getting information at this
Yeah,
point.
I think that's a little unreasonable, probably not very polite to do that. Lynn?
Yeah, and just one other comment too, going back to the roundtable discussion, the format so far really hasn't worked well for me. We can't have a good dialogue, ideas going back and forth, something gets presented to us and you're looking for feedback kind of immediately, and I'm not prepared to give you that kind of feedback, without some thought behind it. So I think if we,
Usually I've been to, 3 of the sessions that have been, offered by Woodmont. They're Thursday nights, 7 to 9, and then Saturday mornings, 9 to 11 a.m. And this a good group of interesting people. There've been different people each time that have been there. And there's really some meaty discussions and everything that, kind of, it gets your mind going. So, I mean, this is a very iterative thing, and I think as this discussion develops within the community, I think it's healthy, but I think we need that in the round type of thing for the exchange of ideas, and especially, as we get to, closer. Lynn?
and just another question on the meetings that have been over at Woodmont, as board members, what can we do, what should we do going over there? I mean, we can certainly go and represent ourselves as private citizens.
I'm
but
there as an
that's-
individual to gain information.
But that's really the only,
But, we haven't made.
I'm nervous about the whole
Yeah, we
aspect of
we
going
haven't
over
made any
there and
decisions here or anything,
participating.
so
Right.
it's ideas.
Yeah, and I understand that, I'm just, I want to make sure that we're
Yeah,
all clear
Yeah,
what our,
and as long as there's not a quorum there, we can't have a quorum there, because that constitutes a meeting.
Yeah,
I
that's
was
the
there
only
once
thing I
with,
would
with
just
Dana.
caution. Yeah. Is this the quorum aspect, this is the caution on that?
Yeah.
And what's the
I would
quorum?
be nervous with 3
If
members
the
there. but
majority of
I
the
was-
board members are there.
So that's 5?
5 would be a quorum of the planning board, yes.
Yeah, 5 is a quorum, but even 3, it's not good to get into a discussion with each other, because when I was there with Dana, we were talking with each other, we're talking with other people.
Right.
And so, there must have been at least 9, 10 people.
Oh, yeah.
Really healthy discussions. Each time, but it's been different people that are there. So, this part of the meeting, actually, I'm going to divide into 3 parts. One, we're going to have an update to see where we're at and everything, questions and answers from everyone. Then Jack Falvey wants to talk, we'll do Jack after that. There'll be questions and answers there with Jack. And we have Tim compiled all the questions. Well, there was a lot of statements and a lot of editorials within what we had gotten from Jack, and I assume Jack is the contributor to all of them, because I don't see any other names or anything. And what we'll do, basically with that, I think that we're at the point where we have to sift the wheat from the chaff, because we want to look at the real questions that deal with both master plan and the site plan, and that's what we'll be dealing with. I think as far as questions that are probably answered by the developer, that could be, people could take that up with the developer at the sessions. That's why I think it's healthy to have the sessions. Otherwise, I think it would tie things up here. And if individuals still have a problem, then they could bring it here as an individual and name and address and so forth. So, we'll proceed, and just names for the record, please, for,
Rick Chelman.
I'm Mike Kettenbach.
welcome.
Thank you.
Just one quick explanation for the board. The workshop sessions have been going pretty well, and Saturdays, this past Saturdays, resulted in enough changes through the document that we were continuously busy from Saturday morning until 3 o'clock this afternoon. I don't like to submit things last minute like that, but I just had to get a package here. Our staff has had no time to look it over. The changes from a technical perspective are not substantive, I don't think, but they rippled through basically every page. So that's what happened.
I think one of the accomplishments that we made at the last meeting was the uses, and I think we're comfortable with the uses. And then I think we talked about zoning on the periphery, and maybe that's where we should get into, some of the discussion now.
We did do a matrix of uses. We can just talk about that. There's a total of 13 sheets that present the information from before, but then there's this one sheet that shows the level 2 areas on the left, and then on the right in tabular form, where it's green it's allowed, where it's grayed out it's not, and where appropriate there are quantities put in as well.
I might have a bigger one. Let's see.
Okay, this is at the end of the,
Here we go.
that's what I got. Okay, so this is all the uses, and then what's allowed in the various parts that will comprise the master plan.
Correct. At the top uses, residential and civic uses, are pretty self-explanatory. And then the bottom business uses have up to this point in time just been shown as other, because it's a list of 40 some odd uses that are in the PUD zoning itself. So what we've done with this matrix is try to flesh that out and to provide a basis to, say where a financial institution could go. Not going to go in W-2, for example. Things like that. And I don't expect that you can say yay or nay on something like this, because there's a lot of different cells of data there, and staff needs to look it over. But I think in terms of a way to present it, I think it works.
Yeah, I think it's something we're gonna have to, look at. We aren't gonna say yay, nay, or whatever, because I just don't know.
But the general concept, if you look at the columns that are mostly green going top to bottom, it's W21, which is the village center, W25, which is the center of the north of Pillsbury area.
And that's strictly residential, other than, I see hospital,
The green.
public utilities.
And then W27, we've shown, and this is a major part of the workshop discussions. There are two possibilities with the area west of 93 at the north part of this property, if exit 4A West happens or if exit 4A West doesn't happen. So we've added both conditions. We expect it will happen, and for that reason we expect it to be more commercial. We expect that the character of that part of the neighborhood will change if that happens. So we've added that as a possibility, but if it does not happen, we're expecting it to be mostly residential in character with a little bit of like convenience store, a little bit of office, shown here. Fewer residential units. So here it is without 4A West. Here it is with 4A West. And as you can see, especially in the bottom, a lot more commercial uses are allowed if that exit happens.
Maybe Tim could show those two plans.
Which one?
So, Tim, Andre, any, any quick thoughts?
And here it is in plan view. This is, again, if exit, this note has been added, and I'll just say that what it says is, even though I can't read it, I remember it, if exit 4A West doesn't happen, it basically stays the way it's shown, primarily residential with a little bit of mixed use right there. And then the next slide. If exit 4A does happen, see how we've added more of the mixed use color. So if this exit does happen, then there could be more stuff.
I'm assuming that that's contingent upon that roadway taking that shape and that design.
Nothing is specific, I mean, it would have to take something like that alignment if it becomes a highway exit, just because of the way, it's a similar alignment to the other side, on the east side of 93. But the specifics of the road alignment would be the subject of a separate site plan subdivision application.
And also that entails land that you, at least as of right now, the land along the exit point of exit 4A going to the west, some of that is not under your control. That is privately held, and some of those are going to be taken, at least in that area. I know there's 3 houses and 1 shed that's going to be taken through for the exit ramps.
There are houses in there, yes.
Yeah, and you're assuming that, I mean, you shouldn't assuming, but some of those would be rezoned to what you're looking for, but they're not under your control. The land's not under your control.
Correct. I mean, it's my thinking from a planning engineering perspective that if that exit happens, if I lived here, I'm probably not going to want to see residential use continue and start a process with the town to seek some rezoning and, change of uses. Exit ramps aren't typically places where people like to live adjacent to. But it was a fair point that came up during the workshops. If it does happen, okay, the character will probably change, and it's a possibility that some additional commercial mixed use could be located up there. If it does not happen, it stays primarily residential.
There's one more question.
Andre, yes.
Again, this is the first time I saw it, so I just have a few questions. What does that change and that would lie within the W5 area, correct?
I believe that's the correct label, yes.
And that would change your,
Actually, W27.
27,
So 5 is down below, right?
and that would change the, I should say, how would that change the perform in that area, meaning that it will change from residential, I think you had 100,000 square feet in that area, and that would increase it by, 100,000 square feet of office, I believe.
Without 4A West, it's 5,000 square feet of retail. With 4A West, it's a potential 300,000.
So it goes from 5,000 to
300.
300,000. Okay.
I think,
Andre, it's up on the screen. You can see it much more easily now.
I think basically what we're looking for tonight, since staff hasn't had a chance to review this, is this, again, we've refined the format. And I think that this format works better and is more easily explained than what's been taking place in the past. And we've developed this through the workshops from people's comments coming on Thursdays and Saturday nights. So we're as we've been moving along over the past month, we've been refining it without being in front of this board based on comments from the public. And I think that this is starting to narrow down very critically what can and cannot go on these properties, and what are the densities that the board's looking for. Now it's a matter of saying, is this the proper format? We've determined that it was the format before, but now it's even tighter. And at our next meeting, after everybody's had a chance to digest this, then we would probably have a very, very more productive give and take on the uses and the sizes at that particular time.
Yeah. How does the board feel, Tim?
Just the one thing, again, like Andre, I didn't have much chance to look through this and look over this. The one thing that I did see that didn't seem to reflect the direction that I heard from the planning board at last month's meeting was the peripheral residential, primarily residential sub-areas, the W22, 23, 24, 26, 28. The densities that are still shown in the maximas are well above the 1 acre, 1 unit per acre density that the board was discussing in some detail last month. And I think what I'd like to know is if the board really wants to see that happen on the periphery where you're matching residential densities, is that something that we want to direct the applicant to take a look at now?
Yeah, Andre?
Actually, yeah, Tim and I were talking about that. It's more of a recommendation based on what we heard from the design charrette during the fall, and what we've been hearing from the public, and also with regard to the amount of residential development, especially that as it abuts existing residential units. I would recommend that the density along that W22, 3, 4, 6, and 8 be consistent with that 1 acre zoning.
Yeah, I think I know one of the sessions over there was discussing about apple trees and, like we get into some of the
Well, that's
about
the-
maintenance, how to
yeah.
but then it kind of digressed into leaving a vegetative area, whether, trees and bushes and shrubs. And then, I'm kind of like looking at periphery, what you just said, for, single acre housing.
What our take on it, Mr. Chairman, is that where we butt 1 acre, or if somebody has 150 feet, we match it, both front and rear. So if somebody's rear butts us at 150 feet, we have a rear butting that at 150 feet. And if somebody has 100 feet of frontage on the street, then there would be a matching across, and then the densities increase as it goes in. But in no way did we ever anticipate having anything other than matching zoning across from other zoning. And I think we've, at the workshops, have been very consistent in saying that's our intent. So we'll make sure that that's reflected in the documentation. I think we were looking at it more in the written documentation than in the visual presentation.
Yeah, I think the visual was what has the biggest impact. because
Okay, then we'll apply
I
it.
think you can see some of that on page 4 where it's a little more detailed. Those big color blobs don't show it, but by page 4, you get a little better sense of that, where you see the lot sizes kind of matching up. Maybe hard to see on the screen, but I can see it on my computer better.
Well, I just want to make sure that that the board may not agree with the recommendation, but if it can be reflected in the sections, because right now, W22 from November up to this point has always reflected 19 acres, 55 units. And obviously, if you go with the 1 acre proposal that we're looking at, it will reduce each one of those areas from a total of, or reduce it by a total of about 274 units if we went that route.
My thinking with that, and I didn't hear the specific comment because I wasn't here last month, as you know, was that as you abut the actual perimeter, you'd match, and in this area, that's it. You basically have just that strip to match. But areas like this, especially if that ever comes into the project, parts of areas like this that more abut this project and don't abut anybody else, and along here, this side, I thought that maybe that there could be a little extra density, more internal. So
Yeah, so, I mean,
Well,
maybe
one of the things that we've,
so in here, what type of density are you looking for in here?
duplexes or something like that possibly.
Because right now that
Or,
has 55 units proposed on the 19 acres, and what I heard, especially at the design charrette, was there was mention of the scenic and cultural byway, the Apple Way going by there, and I think there was an understanding that maybe not all the trees, the apple trees there are salvageable. I don't know, I'm
I've
not
heard-
an orchardist,
Yeah, I've
but,
heard comments that they're kind of deteriorating their age, and really, if it was a working orchard, they'd have to be replaced.
but if, those that are salvageable, then if there an attempt to be made for those to survive, that would be great. But if not, can it be replaced with something else that would have equal aesthetic value as you go down that road? I know some looks at.
Flowering apple in there, just flowers don't have to maintain it or something.
Yeah, so, but there would, and I think Andre Duani mentioned this at one of the design charrettes with regard to those that purchase lots in that area would come with the provision that, there would be a maintenance aspect of it, to make sure that the scenic, the trees are, if there's apple trees that are salvageable, if they're not, then if whatever gets replaced, that there's a maintenance aspect to it.
I mean, it'd be lovely to find an orchardist to take care of it. I don't think we have any offers at all, so. And apple orchards are, I consider high maintenance.
so it may just be a matter of clarifying some of the language within the graphics, I think. That was, because that was one of the things that jumped out at me from when I did have a chance to quickly look at this as I was putting this together for the meeting tonight.
I think that one of the things that we could do before the next meeting is sit down with Tim and come
That'd be
and have a consensus that comes to you with clarity and might make it
That would be the ideal
make
thing
things,
to do.
make
because-
things happen at a little faster pace. Although we've been making changes continually throughout the last month at every meeting. Rick's been working very diligently at doing that, and one of the other things on the W-2 there is also, we took out a number of the curb cuts that were one of the issues that was brought to our attention, and took it back to just 2 curb cuts so that you could get in and out of that area. I think it reflected on this sheet right here at the bottom, so that there's only 2 curb cuts coming in, as
There were
opposed to
6.
there were
I
a
think there
number
were
before,
6,
6 before, so that's how we're trying to do it, and we've left vegetation there because that was a concern that was expressed to us as well. So what I'd like to see is that, as you say, that workshops are very helpful to us. I know that that's not the board's recommendations, but we are hearing from a lot of people, and we're still trying to refine the process. And as we continue to refine the process, it's going to make it all easier for us to pull it together at the next meeting. And I think in our sitting down with Tim, we can come to you with a well-defined and well-written plan. We're getting there. We're getting closer every time, and the openness of the process I found very interesting and enlightening too. So
Yeah, that's definitely an easier, I think, environment to, to express good ideas out, but it's exchange with individuals that are there is really, I thought was great. So, Dana?
Yeah, just something, since we're on the density subject, and I don't know, I have a little bit of a concern, because on the list of land uses, you got, 1,300 mixed types, and I understand that, but then it's plus the senior and affordable, and I know it's premature, but I know I would kind of like, and probably other members of the board would kind of like to get a feel of just how much of the senior and affordable we're talking about. Is it part of the 1,300 or over and above the 1,300 planned?
we've always considered it to be above and beyond, but we're asking the board as to what their thoughts are. That's the reason we've left it
Right.
as a unknown quantity. What does the community feel that is necessary for workforce housing so that fire, police, public service can live in the community in which they service? And that's one of the issues that I think that the town has to grapple more than the developer.
Doesn't that have to be within a percentage of the overall town population, Tim?
If this is being done through a PUD process, you basically can determine how and where you want it to happen and under what regulation you want it to happen. It would not necessarily have to follow our inclusionary housing ordinance, although I'd probably recommend that some of those aspects be incorporated into whatever happens, but it would not be something that would be just based on our existing ordinance. There's, again, ability for the planning board to be flexible in terms of
Okay.
how
You
that
know,
becomes.
and do we think it should be a part of the project? We absolutely do, but that's something that we're looking for guidance from the board from, and that's the reason we've left that unquantified.
Okay, I'll throw it out to the board then. Do we want to set a percentage? Or do we want to include it within the 1,300 max?
I would, my inclination is probably to include it within the 1,300. And I'm looking at that 1,300 to provide housing for across the economic strata. So that people on the low end can, live there. People on the high end can live, in the type of housing that they want. I've seen some of these big, well, even down in the south, and especially, Southern California, where these things are huge, and they mix the commercial and everything together, and it's a very nice environmental, feeling about where, you've got your low income, lower income. I mean, they're all nice housing, but people the lower can live there. Then you get your gated part to it, where the high level's working, and the houses are a bit bigger.
Just to get to the, I know we're throwing terms around like low income. In
Yeah,
terms of,
I'm
in terms of the definition
general.
of what workforce housing for Londonderry is, we're talking about a home affordable to a family of 4 at 100% of the median income for the Western Rockingham County area, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of $95,000 a year. So you're talking that translates to about a $270,000 to $290,000 home in terms of for sale.
And keep in mind also that this project is, without that, under 2 units to the acre overall. The ordinance allows up to 6. And I think what Mike is saying, not to speak for you, but I'm going to speak for you, is he needs 1,300 units market rate. Not that, that's not completely out of market rate. And he's willing to add more affordable. So I'd encourage you, if you think the town needs, and I don't know if you've had a study that says you need a certain number, and if that number's 100, 200, whatever, we try to find space for those in the project. But I'd hope you can move away from a percentage at this point, because we didn't come in with asking for 13 thinking we needed 800. It's not that kind of a project.
And the 1,300 is max.
It's the market,
It's the number.
number of market units we need.
Oh, okay.
To support the other uses?
It's
It's a blend.
To sustain the project.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think as a minimum, we need to define a quantity,
yeah.
It may be 0, it may be something else, but we need to define the quantity.
I think we're missing something, but when the sheet says 1,300 dwelling units, mix of uses, I didn't see anywhere on that sheet that said except elderly housing or except low-income housing. It says 1,300 dwelling units, mix of uses, and then you have a list of what you consider residential uses, and they're all right there. So I don't remember ever having any kind of a discussion where we said there was going to be 1,300 units in that W,
Page 3.
whatever that's the first section is.
it's partly here.
But, and then we're gonna, talk about adding another kind of housing on top of that. Maybe I just missed that, it's certainly possible, but I would have expected that any housing we were gonna have would fall in that 1,300 dwelling mix of uses. Sorry.
The total number of dwelling units does count all the dwelling unit types.
Yeah,
Right there.
1,300 mix of types.
Plus.
Oh, plus, okay, plus, all right, I was looking at a different sheet, it doesn't say that, okay. Plus senior and affordable.
There's also, my recollection is there's also text in the written portion of the master plan that we haven't touched in a while that talks to this. So it is, if the board's decision is not to add any, fine, it stays at 1,300, it's fixed. You know, that's the number. But if you would like us to add an affordable component, be it 50, be it 200, we can try to find
Be on top of.
on top of the
On
1,300.
top of the 1,300.
And you're 2 units per acre now.
Yeah, Andre?
I guess in playing devil's advocate, what if the board decides to say that 800 is the max that you have? What would that do to your plan?
It won't help it. You know, this is not an inexpensive plan. This is, there's a lot of, a huge amount of infrastructure costs that the developers have to pay for to get this project to move forward. So, it's been very carefully studied and proposed. And it's, again, it's not, we're not coming in asking for, do the math, 679 times 6. That's the number of units that could be requested. And that's just not remotely in character of the type of project that they want to do. And it is going to be a project of mixed-use, higher density in a couple of different nodes, and then more matching the neighborhoods at the perimeter, which is what you, I guess, talked about more last month. You can't do that at 3,600 units.
Okay, let me ask you this. Currently, where, let's say, just for sake of argument, let's go with 50 senior and affordable. What zone are you planning to put them in? I mean, is it,
We would
are you
integrate them.
planning apartments, planning two-family homes, planning something similar to the one the conceptual we just saw?
At 50, I think you could easily fit them in the southerly area with some in here and some right in here, second-level units. Much like some of the housing in downtown Portsmouth, where there are folks who don't even own cars, who live downtown.
Mm.
So, I guess, is the board comfortable with the low density on the outside, single acre housing, vegetative band, so to speak?
So just a question.
Tom?
Along the outer edge, it's only, along the outer edge, it's just one level of houses?
Yes.
Okay, then across the street from that level, it would be what size lots?
Internal to the project and across the street, you can actually see graphically how the lots are larger on the perimeter and then smaller internally.
Those are
So,
about half the size of the ones preceding it?
So it's like
again,
half acre?
Third.
Again,
it's not a subdivision plan, but yes, the concept is perhaps a third, 40%, something like that.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I just answered your question, sorry.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah,
One other thing I did notice, again, in my quick look, and I can see it pop up over what used to be there, is the straightening of the Pillsbury Road intersection,
Yeah.
the jog.
that came from the workshops.
You like how that sort of layers in?
I love PDF layers. You see how things actually come together.
As I explained, I think 2 months ago, and we did straighten this out, this is not a subdivision plan, but that was such a red herring, showing that interruption in Pillsbury Road, that I just had to get rid of it.
that
So,
was the vast majority of the input was to get rid of it, I take.
it's gone. Clearly gone. It was gone from the rendering some time ago, but now it's,
In the 10 minutes I had to look at it, those were the two things that jumped out at me, so I just wanted to at least get those out there.
Could I just ask a favor for next time? I know you were pressed for time now, but I don't know if you know this, but on my computer, I don't think I have the ability to look at multiple windows like I might at home. So if you have a particular graph, like the one with the land uses that you got ready for tonight, if you don't have to print out the whole thing for us, but if there's a particular thing you wanted us to pay attention to that you could give us in paper form, I would actually really appreciate that, because I could compare what's in my hand to what's on my screen.
Sure.
It'd be great.
Put it on like a legal size piece of paper, so it's
And-
easy to
and-
read.
Something like that would be great, yeah, just
Handouts.
so I'm not flipping up and down the,
And we
30
can just
pages.
direct you to the page.
Yeah, because
Okay.
here, the
Yep.
screen is a little slow, so a lot of
Does the
graphics,
board,
you
would the
gotta wait for
board
it to-
like a paper submittal?
A lot of paper.
I mean, it's
It
easy.
it is a lot of paper, but
We try to minimize paper, it's,
She just wants to kill
Just,
trees.
I just figured the key thing, like that, the land use graph would have been handy for me to hold while I looked at the other things. It doesn't have, in my opinion, it doesn't have to be everything.
It's,
put things side by side.
we can put key schedules, and then the visuals could be separately.
I know we talked about a different venue possibly at one point, and I think if I use my projector, we might have a little bit better result too. I mean, it's a good projector, but I think mine might be a little bit brighter.
Yeah, maybe give a little more resolution. And, yeah, because here expanding stuff, it just gets a little fuzzy.
I mean, I can also blow these up into two, so we just project half, because the proportions are bad.
Doesn't work very well because of the sizes.
Tim, has the town done a study on affordable? Is there a target number that is needed?
The best place to look right now, there was a housing task force that completed its work a couple of years ago now.
Yeah, I think
which
the target
2008?
percentage was 34%.
Yeah, I believe 34% of the community was the relative target. But I can send you the link to, it's under the boards and committees tab, look under housing task force. And the
That
report is
might be
out.
something that the board could use too.
That was really the basis for the, with the state law changes for the ordinance work that we did.
Yeah, because I think the workforce, housing task force completed its work about the same time the legislature was passing the legislation that required us to adopt regulations.
Mr.
John?
Chairman, people are leaving, and some have been sitting here for 4 hours. Before you lose the rest of the crowd, maybe we could hear from what they have, the people who came here
Yeah,
had to say.
I think we're
Yeah.
kind of reached where
That's fine.
we're going to, but I'd like to hear from the public on what's been presented here. Ma'am, yep, we'll have to, we'll find a spot for you up here.
I just have some paperwork that might help you out in that last question of about abutting properties. This is a map that I can present tonight. And this is the GIS from the town website. And if you put this, that shows abutting properties right next to the Woodmont Commons plan, you'll note that along the town GIS map, it shows 9 homes up to this point. If you put it in the correct position, there's 13 homes on this side.
Yeah, okay, so it's 13 on Gilchrist.
No, that's not Gilchrist.
Oh, okay.
I
yeah.
believe is that Kit Lane
Oh, okay,
here.
we're up, okay.
and abutters?
I get my orientation.
There's
here
9
now.
on one side that's
Yeah,
existing,
Gary Drive,
and Kit.
yeah.
And then there's 13 on Woodmont. They do not have the same back size.
Right, they
Well,
just talked about matching
Yeah,
Right.
we just talked
side
about
for
it
side,
just
Right,
now,
and
so.
it isn't as far as what we had.
needs to be
And we
fixed.
did come, and it would've been nice if we had some kind of presentation, paperwork, because we've been sitting here, and what we see, we can't even see it in the room, what's up here. And the different maximas were changed, the different numbering for the maximas were changed since the last time. And, we did come here for the information, to present our own information, and what we're hearing doesn't jive with what we're seeing ourselves from
Yeah,
what we have.
because even what, this has changed from what we just found out now. So
Right.
it's an evolving process, so nothing's gonna stay the same too long at this point.
Did
Because,
you change that site?
Art,
Fix it to
Did you
can we get her name for the record?
oh,
Yeah, from Saturday? Yes.
On the left side, about Budding
The-
Kit Lane?
No, those
So
haven't, no, as I said, I wasn't here at the last meeting when that was discussed at length, so that hasn't been updated. Message was clear tonight. I think the board was clear,
But we
Mike was
just-
clear.
But we just talked about it, and you
Yeah,
said it did.
so this is
It will be.
updated now, so it's.
Right, but that's all we had to go by,
Y- y-
because this
yeah.
website hasn't been updated.
Oh, okay. Oh, could I have your name for our records, please?
Ann Champa.
Ann Champa, okay. Yeah.
But if he's saying that it's gonna be the same,
Yeah,
Backlot
what
size
he's
to
saying
backlot.
now is this will match what's gonna be there.
Frontage, I
Yeah,
was saying.
the frontage,
well, the
front,
backage now,
front-
because they're backlots.
yeah, front and back,
Right,
and the acreage should be the same.
but that's what we've been hearing all along, and that's what it was supposedly, but if you actually do the
Yeah.
count, it's not.
Yeah, and that's what we just heard tonight.
Right. And also, just a quick definition, what is 2.7 and 2.8 now? Were those the original 2.7 and 2.8s versus the last change that got rid of 2.8 and you combined 2.6 and 2.7?
They're different because of the change in the possibility of exit 4A west.
Okay,
So
because the
the-
last plan, what you have listed is 2.6 and 2.7. Basically, a good portion of that 2.7 was actually 2.6, and 2.8 was 2.7.
And you're going to see more changes as we go through this.
And it would, no, it would have
It's
been
the
nice
nature
if
of the-
you would have handed it out since it was so late. And we did kind of, gain some information. We can't see anything from back there.
We've been,
Black one.
we haven't been asked to do it. As a matter of fact, we were asked to utilize the format of the pictures on the computers. And we're happy, as now we found out that the board even wants handouts. We're glad to do it and provide it. And that's what you'll see at the next meeting. You'll have handouts.
Yep,
And
yeah.
it'll be updated on the Woodmont Commons website.
On a weekly
Yeah.
basis.
Save this anyway. This is gonna be handy. Just make sure the new version, what you see here, once we get it in print, matches up.
Right, that's your town GIS website. Anybody can access.
Oh, okay, okay.
You know,
Gentleman there, maybe come to the microphone right by Andre, please.
Miles McDonough. I'm actually out of town, but with someone from Hovey Road. And I think what I just want to, sort of some of the similar things, but since you guys just got it, you're going to be bringing more questions to the next time,
Yeah,
to...
this is gonna be a very iterative process.
Well, I'm
because
talking about the information you just received today.
Yes,
All I'm asking is just make sure that, I would say, at the beginning of your next meeting, before you go off onto something else, finish your questions, but then let everyone else who can now go home, look at this stuff online, get some good questions, and come in and ask the questions, because now everyone's going to be a little bit behind. So before you move on to the next step, make sure everyone can read this stuff and ask questions,
so we can have everyone all caught up
and
together.
have everyone caught up.
Yeah.
That's
I'll
all.
be attempting to get this
Gotcha.
PDF file uploaded to the town's website, the
Yeah.
Woodmont page, tomorrow.
Tom,
if I could make a suggestion, maybe so that people aren't looking at one version and we're looking at a different version, is there some way of putting some sort of legend on it that this is version 2.7 dated,
like a date?
yeah, or date, so
If you
that
look in the
everybody's
lower-
working off the same page?
If you look in the lower right,
Yeah,
it's
well,
the
that,
best
you know,
place to
that's,
best place to look.
it's like looking for a serial number at a car, you know?
No,
Maybe you
it's
can make
not-
it a little more pronounced.
It's right there.
It's right above the page number.
Okay.
Okay, Joe,
Joe Green, 25 Mammoth Road. I just wanted to point out to everybody here, and people watching still at home, if they still are watching.
well, there's some, believe me.
I think, you know, you have to take a look at where we've been and where we've come. There's been a lot of changes that have been done since the last planning board meeting. This developer is there Thursday and Saturday, spending a lot of time. Mike's there personally on Saturday. I've been involved with the past 2 Saturdays. I've brought a lot of information that you guys have already gotten or will be getting today to this developer ahead of you, presenting it to him, and he's made changes based off of the feedback that the town has asked. So when we look at, you know, the mirrored densities, that was taken right off of suggestions. This building in the middle of the road, that was taken right off of the suggestions. So this developer wants to react, and he's looking for feedback. And for the townspeople to give him feedback is one way to help. But it's really, you guys are the ones that are going to approve the plan, the PUD master plan. So for us to give feedback to him is great, and he's obviously moving. He's obviously changing these things according to what we have asked him to do. But really, I don't want to speak for him, but I know that it's going to be you that needs to direct him more, okay, on this process and give him more positive feedback. Like this question about, and I'll try to end, but this question about elderly. What is it need? Is it 34%, or can we do without 34%? You know, this is the type of thing. When you look at 1,300 residents, well, do I need X amount more, or do I need, how much more elderly do I need? What's the percentage? These are all things, density, it's all I've been hearing, density. Well, if we define that, if you, as the governing board, defines that for this particular developer, then they'll know what direction to go in. So when somebody presents something for 7 months and there's very little direction going back, they can't really drive the bus easily. So what we're trying to do as residents is give him a lot of feedback on Thursday and Saturday. If that's the form we're gonna use, then that's what we'll continue to use. But I don't want people to be surprised on the audience that if they come and write emails and letters over the past week or two, and all of a sudden now they're getting a lot of things accomplished, is because we're presenting it to this guy and this developer, and he's reacting. And he's reacting quickly, and I think that says a lot about how he wants to work with the town.
Yeah, because I think that's a good sign. I mean, it's good to hear that also, because our aim is really to generate and develop public input.
Yep.
Because the public has as much stake as anyone else, you know, in this project. And I think we're all, I mean, we want something that's going to work for both the developer and for the town.
I mean, literally, just to give you an example.
But that's where, you know, we're looking for the input, but it's at some point, and probably the point's becoming closer, is that we've got to put some, organization to this. And,
Just so you know how this happened, and I'll get off the mic. I literally had 6 emails to myself as a counselor about curb cuts. I talked to Mike on Saturday about it. He made the changes.
yeah.
I mean, that's the type of reaction